Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because what I'm about to show you is one of the most unbelievable political self-owns we've seen all year. And trust me, guys, in 2025, that bar is pretty high. So on November 13th, New York City's mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani, the self-declared socialist with 1 million plus followers cheering this guy on, decided to pick a public fight with one of the biggest employers, one of the biggest tax contributors and biggest economic engines in the entire city, Starbucks. Yes, I know, Starbucks, guys. So with the city already losing businesses left and right, tax revenue evaporating, cops quitting in record numbers, and President Donald J. Trump freezing billions in federal funding, Mamdani thought the smartest move was to order New Yorkers to boycott one of the few corporations that are still keeping New York on financial life support. Then, in what might be the most poetic backfire of the year, Starbucks turned his boycott into the biggest red cup day ever. They didn't just survive his attack, they humiliated it. So here's a part that should make every American furious. So while the numbers prove that Mamdani's boycott crashed and burned spectacularly, the corporate media, the same media that screams extremist at conservatives for far less, suddenly pretended that he was the reasonable one. They ran cover, they softened the language, they hid the fallout, they sanitized the meltdown. They treated the man who declared war on a major employer like he was some thoughtful, misunderstood barista whisperer. But tonight, guys, we're pulling the receipts, we're exposing the full chain reaction, we're breaking down the numbers that the media feared to touch, and we're showing you exactly how Starbucks, a company already closing stores nationwide, sent Mamdani the most brutal message possible. We don't need New York City. New York City needs us. This is the story that the networks won't air. This is the truth that they're desperately trying to bury. And when you hear what happened next, you're going to understand exactly why they're protecting him. Roll up your sleeves, guys, because tonight we follow the money, we follow the meltdown and the media cover up, and it all starts with a boycott that blew up in Mamdani's face. Hit the like button and subscribe. You want to know how quickly a city can be pushed toward the edge? Well, it starts with a single post. One message blast out to over 1 million followers. This is exactly what Zoran Mamdani did. The incoming mayor of America's largest city took to social media and told New Yorkers to boycott Starbucks. Not reflect, not reconsider, not negotiate, boycott. He framed this as some notable solidarity with striking workers, but the impact was immediate and explosive. No contract, no coffee. This is what he wrote, as if shutting down a corporation that provides thousands of jobs and tens of millions of dollars in tax revenue to New York City was some kind of historic or heroic gesture. Conservatives immediately sounded the alarm. This wasn't activism. This was economic warfare against a major employer that he desperately needed. They keep telling us inflation's under control, but go ahead and go buy groceries, pay for insurance, fill up your car. Does that feel like control to you? This is why I partner with Noble Gold, because they tell the truth. They help people protect their money from inflation by moving part of their retirement into gold and silver that actually holds value. It's not complicated. It's not hype. It's just common sense. And this is why thousands of Americans are already calling Noble Gold at 877-646-5347 down below on your screen, or they're visiting RonYatesGold.com to download their free wealth protection kit. Because inflation doesn't care how hard you worked, but gold does, and protecting what's yours just makes sense. Now, here's what triggered Mamdani's dramatic call. A tiny union block, roughly 4% of Starbucks stores nationwide, coordinated a strike on Red Cup Day. This is the single biggest sales day of the year. 65 unionized locations walked out, demanding higher wages, better scheduling, stronger benefits, and improved protections. And instead of urging negotiation or stability for a city that's already financially fragile, Mamdani jumped in with both feet. Conservatives pointed out immediately that this wasn't about worker solidarity. This was about political theater. A small strike became a megaphone for an incoming mayor determined to impose ideology over reality. Red Cup Day wasn't just a strike. It became a symbol of how a minor labor action can be weaponized when a politician amplifies it recklessly. Now, here's where the whole thing goes from reckless to downright self-destructive. Zoran Mamdani isn't just any old activist yelling on social media. He's about to become the mayor of New York City, and his entire socialist wish list depends heavily on corporate tax revenue. We're talking about free childcare for every child under 6, completely free bus transit, city-owned grocery stores, and a massive expansion of municipal services. All of it requires money. big money, and corporations like Starbucks are among the largest contributors. Yet, brilliant Mamdani told New Yorkers to boycott the very corporation that funds the programs that he promised to give away for free. How does this make any sense? This is the contradiction that conservatives seized on immediately. He's biting the hands that feed the entire agenda that he ran on. And the second Mamdani hit post, conservative media lit up like a Christmas tree. Fox News, Business Insider, and others framed the move as pure economic self-sabotage. Why? Because New York City is already hemorrhaging businesses, tax revenue, and residents. They're all leaving. Many of them are headed for states like Florida with no state income tax. Every major corporation that leaves takes millions of dollars with it. And Mamdani just publicly encouraged a boycott against one of the few that are still standing in New York City. Outlets describe this move as completely reckless, ideological, and anti-worker, and even anti-reality. So this wasn't framed as support for labor. It was framed as a direct attack on economic stability. By siding with a tiny union representing a sliver of Starbucks stores, Mamdani signaled hostility toward businesses at the exact moment NYC can least afford it. But here's where the story takes a turn Mamdani never saw coming. So while he and a handful of union activists tried to kneecap Starbucks at their biggest day of the year, Starbucks posted their best red cup day ever. Let that sink in, guys. So despite all the noise, 99% of their stores stayed open. Lines wrapped around buildings and sales shattered expectations. The so-called Mamdani effect kicked in, meaning his boycott actually boosted their visibility, their traffic, and their bottom line. Then came the subtle, stinging message from Starbucks itself. We don't need New York City. New York City needs us. Mamdani tried to hurt Starbucks, but instead he handed them a record-breaking victory and at the same time exposed the political weakness behind his megaphone. And here's the danger that every economist, every business owner, every tax official in New York understands. Even if Mamdani doesn't, Starbucks is already struggling nationwide. They've closed over 600 stores across the country, including 50 plus in New York alone. So if this boycott campaign pushes them to scale back even further or pull out entirely, NYC could lose $70 to $80 million in tax revenue practically overnight. That means lost sales tax, lost payroll tax, lost property taxes, lost fees, all gone. Not to mention how many jobs would be lost. I mean, then comes the ripple. Foot traffic plummets, small businesses collapse, and property values nosedive. Experts estimate the overall damage could easily top $250 million. One politician's ideology could cost New York an entire artery. When one person fixes their Medicare plan, their whole family feels it. Less worry, less stress, more freedom. This is why I partner with Chapter. They help you fix your Medicare coverage, but the ripple effect changes everything. One viewer said, "My kids thank me for calling Chapter." So let me ask, who will your call help? Now, most people already made theirs at phone number down below, 909-563-8279, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. And one of our viewers by the name of Lou said, "Thanks, Ron, for the advice about Chapter. I called and it helped me out a ton, so thanks, buddy." Now, here's the part the media conveniently glosses over. Even if Mamdani wanted to make up for the revenue that he risks losing from Starbucks, he can't. New York City's mayor doesn't even have the authority to raise taxes on his own. Under state law, every tax hike must go through the New York State legislature, and Governor Kathy Hochul has already signaled that she's done raising taxes on residents who are fleeing the state in record numbers. That means Mamdani's entire agenda, his free healthcare, his free childcare, his free transit, his city-run grocery stores, has no funding source if corporations begin pulling back. He trapped himself. He checkmated himself. By attacking Starbucks, he's attacking the very tax base that he needs to survive, and he has zero power to replace it. And so the timing really couldn't be any worse, because as of today, President Donald J. Trump is already applying enormous financial pressure on New York City. Trump has already frozen nearly $20 billion in federal infrastructure funds destined for New York City projects, including the Gateway Tunnel and the 2nd Avenue subway extension. He has openly warned that cities hostile to businesses should not expect unlimited federal bailouts. So now imagine this. Mamdani is driving away corporations while the Trump administration is cutting off the safety net that might have softened the blow. His anti-business posture doesn't just put him at odds with CEOs, it puts him in a direct collision course with the President of the United States, and the fallout could be devastating. And while Mamdani wages ideological battles online, crisis on the ground is only getting worse. The NYPD is in free fall, morale has collapsed, and officers aren't waiting for January 1st to see what happens when a proudly anti-police socialist takes the helm. Nearly 250 officers resigned in a single month. This is a staggering 35% jump from the previous year. Since January 2024, more than 5,000 officers have left the force, with an average of 300 quitting per month. They're not leaving because they want shorter commutes or better break rooms. They're leaving because they refuse to serve under a mayor who vilifies them while embracing policies that reward the offenders. This exodus sets the stage for a city spiraling into chaos with leadership that picks fights with coffee shops. And this is where the cover-up begins. The same media networks that slap the word extremist on every Republican who blinks too fast suddenly turned into soft-spoken librarians, while Mamdani, a self-identified socialist, calls for a citywide boycott on a major employer. Fox News and conservative outlets openly mock this double standard, pointing out how networks downplayed the boycott, softening the rhetoric, and avoided calling Mamdani what they routinely call conservatives dangerous, radical, extreme. But instead, mainstream outlets framed him as a thoughtful reformer, standing with workers, not a mayor-elect undermining his own city's tax base. The media didn't just fail to report the fallout, they actively shielded this guy, reinforcing the perception of an agenda-driven press choosing sides instead of telling the truth. Now, here's where the consequences become unmistakable. While Mamdani fires off boycott tweets and the media polishes his image, everyday New Yorkers, they're making a very different calculation. They're leaving. They're not thinking about leaving. They're actually packing up and getting the heck out of town. A Miami real estate developer recently reported over $100 million in signed contracts from fleeing New Yorkers in just 3 months, doubling what they made in all of last year. That's not a coincidence. That is a verdict. Families, professionals, and business owners, they see the writing on the wall. Rising taxes, collapsing services, shrinking police forces, and now a mayor-elect openly hostile to businesses. This is not migration. This is escape. And the people leaving are the exact taxpayers the city can't afford to lose. And while New Yorkers flee, Starbucks is laughing all the way to the bank. Mamdani's boycott didn't weaken them, it turbocharged them. The moment he told the city to boycott, the story exploded across social media, conservative news outlets, and even business networks. And so what happens when you blast a company's name across the entire internet on their biggest sales day? People flood the stores out of curiosity, loyalty, or even just straight up defiance. You can't tell me what to do. I'm going to go to Starbucks. So instead of collapsing under pressure, Starbucks recorded record-breaking sales, proving the boycott backfired spectacularly in Mamdani's face. So what Mamdani intended as a show of force ended up exposing his political weakness. Voters aren't just questioning his economic judgment, they're questioning whether he even understands how the real world works. It wasn't a boycott. It was free advertisement. So now here's where the entire narrative completely comes apart, and where the media's selective reporting becomes impossible to ignore. Because while networks rushed to defend Mamdani's boycott call, they left out several critical facts. First, the Starbucks union represents only like 4% of Starbucks locations nationwide. Second, the union didn't randomly choose Red Cup Day. They strategically targeted the day designed to generate the biggest profits, hoping to inflict maximum financial pain. Third, while those 65 stores staged walkouts, the remaining 96% of locations thrived. Fourth, Mamdani has zero private sector experience. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's never run a business. And yet he's telling one of the most important employers in New York how to operate. And finally, New York just cannot absorb losing more businesses. But the media buried all of this just to protect the guy. So at this point, the tension becomes inescapable. Mamdani is now trapped between two worlds: his socialist ideology and the cold, unrelenting reality of running a city that depends on corporate dollars. He only has two choices. Option A, double down, attack corporations harder, ignore the consequences, and watch the tax base crumble. Or option B, admit that he needs business revenue to fund his agenda. This is a move that would enrage the far-left activists who view him as their champion. Conservative analysts predict he's going to choose option A, because ideology almost always wins over practicality and common sense in these circles. But if he does, the people who will pay the price aren't activists on social media. They're the families that are trying to avoid groceries, bus fares, and safe streets. And now we reach the part that nobody in the media really wants to talk about: the unavoidable mathematical conclusion of everything that Mamdani is doing. Corporations are fleeing, wealthy residents are fleeing, police officers are fleeing, federal funds are frozen, and through all of it, the incoming mayor is signaling hostility toward the very institutions that keep New York City alive. I mean, you can't run NYC when the tax base is evaporating faster than you can campaign for it. You cannot expand social programs when businesses are closing their doors, and you absolutely cannot maintain public safety when thousands of police officers are walking out the door. This isn't a political debate anymore. This is a financial time bomb, and Mamdani is lighting the fuse himself. So here's the truth, guys. The truth the networks won't say out loud. Mamdani didn't just start a fight with Starbucks. He started a fight with math. He started a fight with economics, and he started a fight with reality. And he's losing this fight badly. In fact, the boycott didn't cripple Starbucks, it supercharged them. His rhetoric didn't inspire confidence, it accelerated the exodus, and his media allies did not protect him. They only bought him enough time for the consequences to land even harder. So in a city already struggling with President Trump freezing billions of dollars in federal funds and businesses scaling back, New York needed stability. But instead, they got a mayor declaring war and picking a fight on coffee shops like it was a revolutionary act. But the truth is simple. This boycott wasn't just a backfire. It was a warning shot. This was a taste of what happens when ideology outruns leadership. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. I really want to know what you guys think. And make sure to subscribe for the stories that the media refuses to touch. We'll see you on the next one.